Hello and welcome. Today we are going to talk about a term you might have heard recently, especially if you spend time online: brain rot. It sounds a bit scary, doesn't it? But what does it actually mean? Is it something we should be worried about? In this session, we will explore this concept together. We will look at where the term comes from, what it describes, why it has become such a popular topic, and most importantly, what we can do about it. The term brain rot was actually chosen as the Oxford Word of the Year for 2024. This tells us that it is a significant idea in our current culture. Oxford University Press defines it as the supposed deterioration of a person's mental or intellectual state, especially viewed as the result of overconsumption of material, now particularly online content considered to be trivial or unchallenging. Simply put, it refers to the idea that spending too much time consuming low-quality or meaningless content online, like endless short videos or silly memes, might negatively affect our thinking abilities and mental well-being. Why is this important for us to discuss? We live in a digital world. The internet, smartphones, and social media are a huge part of our daily lives. They offer amazing opportunities for learning, connection, and entertainment. However, like anything, too much of something, especially if it is not very valuable, might have downsides. Understanding brain rot can help us become more aware of our digital habits. It encourages us to think about the quality of the content we consume and how it might be affecting us. In this article, which you can use as a guide for understanding this topic, we will break down the concept of brain rot. We will explore its meaning in more detail, look at the signs that someone might be experiencing it, discuss the potential causes related to our online behavior, examine the possible negative effects on our minds and lives, and finally, explore practical strategies and positive habits we can adopt to keep our minds healthy and sharp in this age of information overload. Our goal is not to make you afraid of the internet, but to empower you with knowledge so you can use digital technology in a balanced and beneficial way. Let's begin this journey of understanding together.
What exactly is brain rot?
So, we have introduced the term brain rot, but let's dive a little deeper into what it really means. As we mentioned, the Oxford Dictionary defines it as a supposed decline in mental or intellectual state caused by consuming too much trivial or unchallenging online content. Think about it like eating too much junk food. A little bit might be okay, but eating only junk food all the time isn't good for your body. Similarly, brain rot suggests that consuming only low-quality, repetitive, or very simple online content might not be the best fuel for our minds. The term itself isn't brand new. Interestingly, variations of it have been used for a long time. Oxford University Press notes that Henry David Thoreau used a similar idea back in 1854 in his book Walden, criticizing a decline in intellectual standards. However, the way we use brain rot today is strongly connected to modern internet culture. It became popular online around the early 2020s, especially on platforms like TikTok, Discord, and Twitter, now X. It's often used by younger generations, like Generation Z and Generation Alpha, sometimes humorously, to describe the feeling of being overwhelmed by or addicted to certain types of online content. This content is often characterized by being very short, fast-paced, highly stimulating, and sometimes nonsensical or purely based on niche internet jokes and memes. Examples could include endlessly scrolling through very short videos like TikToks or YouTube Shorts that require little attention, spending hours watching content that is considered low effort or repetitive, getting so caught up in online trends and slang that it starts to dominate one's vocabulary and way of thinking. You might hear references to things like skibidi, riz, gat, or phantom tax, terms that come directly from specific online communities and memes. The idea of brain rot suggests that if only this kind of language is used, it might show an over-immersion in this specific type of online world. Essentially, brain rot describes both the type of content, low value, trivial, overly simplistic, and the potential effect of consuming too much of it. A feeling of mental fogginess, reduced ability to focus, or a disconnect from more complex thoughts or real-world interactions. It reflects a concern that constant exposure to easy passive entertainment might weaken our ability to engage in deeper thinking, critical analysis, or sustained concentration. It's a cultural observation about how our digital environment might be shaping our minds and communication styles.
Signs and symptoms. How might brain rot show itself?
Now that we understand what brain rot generally refers to, let's think about how it might actually manifest. If someone is consuming a lot of low-quality online content, what changes might we notice in their behavior or thinking? It's important to remember that brain rot is not a formal medical diagnosis. It's a slang term describing a collection of perceived effects. However, people discussing the concept often point to several common signs or symptoms. Let's explore some of them. One of the most frequently mentioned signs is a reduced attention span. Have you ever found it difficult to focus on a book or even a conversation after scrolling through short, fast videos for a while? The theory behind brain rot suggests that constant exposure to quick, bite-sized pieces of information trains our brains to expect constant stimulation and change. This can make it harder to concentrate on tasks that require sustained focus and deeper engagement. Research cited in articles from publications like El País and Inspire Health Network mentions that excessive social media use and consumption of short-form content can indeed impair attention functions. Another potential sign is a preference for low-quality or simplistic content. Someone experiencing brain rot might actively avoid or feel bored by content that requires more thought or effort to understand. They might prefer passively consuming easy entertainment over engaging with more challenging material, whether it's reading a complex article, watching a documentary, or learning a new skill. This isn't about judging anyone's taste, but rather observing a potential shift away from intellectually stimulating activities. Difficulty with complex thought or critical thinking is also associated with the idea. If the mind is constantly fed simple, prepackaged information and opinions, the muscles needed for critical analysis, problem-solving, and forming independent judgments might weaken. Some sources, like the Newport Institute, link the effects of excessive screen engagement, which can lead to brain rot, to difficulties in organizing information, solving problems, and making decisions. We also touched on this earlier, an impact on vocabulary and communication. While internet slang and memes can be fun and part of online culture, and reliance on them to the point where it becomes difficult to express complex ideas or communicate effectively in different contexts, like school or work, is sometimes seen as a sign of being too immersed in a specific, low-quality online environment. Finally, some people describe a general feeling of mental fogginess or lethargy. This is a sense of not feeling mentally sharp, finding it hard to think clearly, or lacking mental energy. This could be linked to information overload or the passive nature of consuming endless streams of content without active engagement. Again, these are not medical symptoms, but rather observations tied to the cultural concept of brain rot. Noticing one or more of these signs doesn't automatically mean someone has brain rot, but they might be indicators that it could be beneficial to examine one's digital consumption habits.
Causes and contributing factors. Why does this happen?
Understanding the signs of potential brain rot leads to the next question: what causes it? Why might people find themselves consuming so much low-quality content and potentially experiencing these negative effects? There isn't one single answer, but several factors related to our modern digital environment likely contribute. One major factor often discussed is the role of algorithms. Social media platforms, video streaming sites, and news feeds use complex algorithms to decide what content to show us. Their main goal is usually to keep us engaged for as long as possible. To do this, they often show us content similar to what we've watched before, or content that gets strong emotional reactions, even if it's not very informative or high quality. This can create filter bubbles or echo chambers, where we mostly see the same kinds of simple or sensational content, making it harder to discover diverse or challenging perspectives. The design of features like infinite scroll, as mentioned in research discussed by El País, is specifically intended to encourage continuous, often passive consumption. This leads to another point: passive consumption versus active engagement. It's very easy to just scroll and watch without really thinking. Much of the content associated with brain rot requires very little mental effort. We just consume it passively, like watching TV without paying much attention. While relaxation is important, constantly consuming content passively without actively thinking about it, questioning it, or engaging with it might not exercise our critical thinking skills. Information overload is another significant factor. There is an unbelievable amount of information available online. It's impossible to process everything. Faced with this overload, our brains might naturally gravitate towards simpler, easier to digest content as a way to cope. Short, simple videos or memes require less mental energy than reading a long article or analyzing a complex issue. While this is understandable, relying only on easy content might lead to neglecting deeper forms of engagement. Finally, a lack of critical engagement plays a role. Sometimes we might consume content without really stopping to think about its source, its purpose, or its accuracy. We might share things without verifying them or accept opinions without questioning them. Developing critical thinking skills, the ability to analyze, identify bias, and form reasoned judgments, is crucial in the digital age. Without actively practicing these skills, we might be more susceptible to consuming and being influenced by low-quality or even misleading information, contributing to the feeling of brain rot. These factors often work together. Algorithms might push easy content, which encourages passive consumption, which feels easier due to information overload and is made worse if we don't critically engage with what we see. Recognizing these contributing factors is the first step towards making more conscious choices about our digital habits.
Potential effects. What are the concerns?
We've discussed what brain rot is, its signs, and its potential causes. Now let's focus on the potential negative effects. Why are people concerned about this phenomenon? What are the possible consequences of spending too much time consuming low-value online content? One major concern revolves around the impact on critical thinking and cognitive abilities. As mentioned earlier, constantly consuming simple, passive content might not exercise the parts of our brain responsible for deeper analysis, problem-solving, and creativity. Some research, like studies cited by El País and The Guardian, suggests links between excessive internet/social media use and changes in the brain, potentially affecting functions like attention span, memory, and even reducing gray matter in areas related to decision-making and impulse control. While brain rot isn't a scientific term, these findings highlight concerns that overexposure to certain types of digital media could make it harder for us to think deeply, learn effectively, and evaluate information critically. Another potential effect is on real-world interactions and social skills. If someone spends a vast amount of time immersed in online culture, especially niche communities with specific slang and references, it might impact their ability to communicate effectively or connect with people in face-to-face situations or different social contexts. There's also a concern that replacing real-world experiences and interactions with passive online consumption could lead to feelings of isolation or a disconnect from the physical world. Mental well-being is also a significant area of concern. While the internet can be a source of support and community, excessive consumption of certain types of content, particularly negative or comparison-heavy content often found on social media, can contribute to feelings of anxiety, stress, depression, or low self-esteem. Doom scrolling, the act of endlessly consuming negative news, is a related concept often linked to poor mental health outcomes. Sources like Horizon Health News and Psychology Today mention the potential for anxiety, stress, and depression as cumulative effects of spending excessive hours on social media. Furthermore, there can be an impact on language and communication skills. While online slang evolves quickly, an over-reliance on very simplistic or meme-based language might hinder the development of a richer vocabulary and the ability to articulate complex thoughts and emotions clearly and effectively in various situations, both written and spoken. It's crucial to reiterate that these are potential effects associated with the excessive consumption of low-quality content. Using the internet and social media is not inherently bad. The concern arises when this consumption becomes unbalanced, displacing other important activities like learning, critical thinking, real-world interaction, and engaging with diverse, high-quality information. Recognizing these potential downsides helps us understand why cultivating healthier digital habits is important.
Combating brain rot. How can we protect our minds?
After discussing the potential downsides of consuming too much low-quality online content, the most important question is, what can we do about it? The good news is that we are not powerless. We can actively cultivate habits that help protect our minds and ensure we use digital technology in a healthier, more beneficial way. Here are some practical strategies suggested by various sources like Health.com, Forbes, and the Newport Institute. 1. Practice mindful consumption and curate your feed. Instead of passively scrolling, try to be more intentional about what you consume online. Ask yourself, is this content valuable? Is it interesting? Is it making me feel good or bad? Actively choose content that aligns with your interests, goals, or values. You can often customize your feeds on social media platforms to see more of what you find enriching. Think of it as creating a healthy mental diet, as suggested by Forbes. 2. Diversify your content intake. Make an effort to consume a variety of content types. Don't watch short videos or memes. Read articles, listen to podcasts, watch documentaries, engage with educational material, or explore creative content. Exposing your mind to different formats and more complex ideas helps keep it active and flexible. 2. Diversify your content intake. Make an effort to consume a variety of content types. Don't watch short videos or memes. Read articles, listen to podcasts, watch documentaries, engage with educational material, or explore creative content. Exposing your mind to different formats and more complex ideas helps keep it active and flexible. 3. Set time limits and take breaks. This is a common but effective piece of advice. Be aware of how much time you spend online, especially on platforms prone to endless scrolling. Use built-in phone features or apps to set limits for specific apps or overall screen time. Importantly, take regular breaks. Step away from the screen, stretch, look out the window, or do something else for a few minutes. This helps prevent mental fatigue and allows your brain to reset. 5. Engage in offline activities. Balance your screen time with real-world activities. Spend time with friends and family, pursue hobbies, exercise, spend time in nature, read physical books, or learn a new skill offline. These activities provide different kinds of stimulation and satisfaction that online content often cannot replicate. They are crucial for overall well-being and help counteract the potentially isolating effects of too much screen time. 5. Develop critical thinking skills. Don't just passively accept everything you see online. Actively question the information. Ask, who created this content? What is their purpose? Is this information accurate? Are there other perspectives? Look for credible sources and try to verify information before believing or sharing it. Engaging critically with content turns passive consumption into an active mental exercise. 6. Prioritize sleep and exercise. Basic health habits have a huge impact on cognitive function. Ensure you get enough quality sleep, as this is when your brain consolidates memories and recovers. Regular physical exercise is also proven to benefit brain health, improving focus, memory, and mood. Implementing these strategies doesn't mean abandoning the internet or social media entirely. It's about finding a balance and using these powerful tools in a way that supports rather than potentially hinders our mental and intellectual well-being. It's about being an active, conscious user rather than a passive consumer.
Navigating the digital world mindfully.
So, we have explored the concept of brain rot. what it means, where it comes from, its potential signs and causes, the concerns surrounding it, and, importantly, how we can actively combat it. We learned that while it's a modern slang term, not a medical diagnosis, it reflects real concerns about how excessive consumption of low-quality online content might affect our thinking, focus, communication, and overall well-being. We saw that factors like algorithms designed for engagement, the ease of passive consumption, information overload, and a lack of critical engagement can contribute to falling into habits that might not be beneficial for our minds. The potential effects, such as reduced attention spans, difficulty with complex thought, impacts on mental health, and changes in communication, highlight why it's important to be aware of our digital consumption patterns. However, the key takeaway should not be fear or negativity towards the internet. The digital world offers incredible tools and opportunities. The goal is balance and mindfulness. By actively curating our feeds, diversifying the content we consume, setting limits, engaging in offline activities, developing critical thinking skills, and prioritizing basic health habits like sleep and exercise, we can take control. We can harness the power of technology for learning, connection, and entertainment without letting its potential downsides overwhelm us. Ultimately, navigating the digital age successfully is about being conscious, intentional users. It's about making choices that nourish our minds, foster meaningful connections, and support our overall well-being. By understanding concepts like brain rot and applying strategies to maintain healthy digital habits, we can ensure that technology serves us, helping us to learn, grow, and thrive in the 21st century. Thank you for joining this exploration.